Hey guys, welcome back. I've got a video here. This is actually from BBC Global, and it is the U.S. island that speaks Elizabethan English. And this is actually here in the state where I live. This is from North Carolina, and I kind of stumbled on accident. I was answering somebody a little bit ago that was complaining about Americans and ruining the English language. And I was pointing out to them that actually the state where I'm from in West Virginia, uh, the people in the Appalachian Mountains are actually the closest thing currently in the current day to Shakespearean English. That my understanding of it is that the queen there, or royalty, I don't know that it was queen, I think it was, but I'm not 100%, didn't want to sound like the commoners, so they switched their way of speaking up, which eventually the entire country, I guess, kind of adopted for the most part. But this one, I have heard this too before, that this island here in North Carolina or off the coast here speaks Elizabethan English. I've heard it. Um, I don't. It's it's a little difficult for me to understand, so I don't know. You guys might be able to understand it better. But let's go ahead and check it out. I will link this video in the description, and yeah, let's get it going.
We toured on the Sinusoid last night, the waterfall, night moonshine, no fish. We both matter up woods.
It's the only dialect in the United States. When you play it for people from outside of the United States, England do not identify it as an American dialect. The Ocracoke dialect and several of the island dialects of the Atlantic seaboard really began in the late 17th century. There was a settlement on the island in the first decade of the 18th century, so in about 1709 or 10. The people presumably came from the southwest of England there to Virginia and settled on islands, and people from those islands traveled by boat to these islands in North Carolina and settled them. Once they settled them, of course, they had no way to access the mainland other than by boat, which is still the case. And so it was isolated for centuries.
It's home, and it's special to me because it's home.
We found this place, and it was beautiful.
Ocracoke's quite simply a magical place.
So they
Understand that.
maintained a fairly isolated and independent existence. And in that context, the original dialect was perpetuated and strengthened. There are certainly retentions of English. There are words that sort of we can find in the plays of Shakespeare, like a word like mimic.
Mama, oh, that means when somebody gets you playing and they get hold of you and they're mad at you about something in the game and they, try to shake you up a little bit. They want to box with you.
Mommy's like to irritate somebody or pick on somebody,
There are also things that they've simply created. In the United States, we play a game hide and seek. Well, on Ocracoke, the term is called mehonky, because when they're hiding, what they do is they imitate the sound of a goose. Mehonky, mehonky.
Just hiding and finding it and running through the bushes and hide somewhere else. Hollering, me harking, they know you're where you got that name, no, I don't know. It's really just another name for sort of like hiding the same thing you choose to.
When we first got there, all right, the term for outsider was dingbatter.
They're the ones you see riding around the road in the middle of the road on a bicycle. There was the two of them. You'll see the couple. And a whole string of cars behind them. They're right in the middle of the road, right down the middle of the road. They're dingbat.
Where did they get dingbatter? As it turns out, up until early 1970s, the term for outsider was foreigner or stranger, okay? Now, in 1972, they got television for the first time. There was a famous American sitcom called All in the Family with Archie Bunker, which was on at the time. One of the characteristics of Archie Bunker, who was sort of a sort of a parody of a racist, a chauvinist, and so forth, was he called his wife a dingbat because she didn't seem to have much common sense. Okay, they saw that and said, "Oh, that's just like the outsiders here."
A real true blood dingbat, or somebody would see the car track, two car tracks going across the beach, and would go across there in a car and think that he could go where a four-wheel drive. That is a real dyed-in-the-wool dingbat.
So in that sense, you know, it keeps changing, but it changes in ways that are sort of similar to its circumstances, you know, what it has and what it doesn't have and so forth. But they also have some pronunciation. The one that everybody talks about, which is why it's referred to as hoy toy.
Hoy toy on the sinusoid. Last night the water fire, night moonshine. No fish. We supposed matter up woods.
Because that bout of tide is back, so it sounds more like toy. All right, so that is what they're known for.
Now tell me what you said.
High tide on the sound side.
Sound side, yeah.
Last night the water fired.
Water fired?
Yeah, that's phosphorus in the water. You ever
Okay,
go to
yeah.
the ocean? You see the the old people used to call it water fire when the water fired.
Last night water fired. Okay.
Yeah, and the night the moonshine.
And night moonshine.
And the night the moonshine. So they had one night they had a water fire against them. The next night they had a moonshine to get them. Usually can't catch, couldn't catch too much on bright nights. When the nights are bright,
Right.
you don't catch much fish. So.
I see.
He said the moonshine. I thought he was talking about moonshine, like maybe that's the West Virginia in me, but from when they go up in the mountains and make moonshine alcohol. It's a shame.
I guess a good feeling, to know that I was born and raised right here, and one of the original ones before people started moving in as tourists and stuff. You might say an original Oakocker.
The only real status is whether you're a native. That is, they call them Oakockers, in which case you can follow your lineage back into the 1700s. Sort of if you've just been there, 2-3 generations, you're not a real Oakocker. Right now, there are about 350 islanders out of a population of around 900. Also, there's more marriages between outsiders and Oakockers. And so that has an effect. And more recently, and this is really interesting, now 40% of the kids in the school are Hispanic. And that's related to the fact that the tourist industry is dependent on outside help.
Yeah, and I think it's worse for the girls than it is for the boys, because the girls are kind of sort of like, they can't fish, they can't crab, and take up a trade like that. So they eventually end up in one of the restaurants or a motel, or they're on more of a day-to-day basis with the tourists and stuff. So I think they're losing it more than a lot of the boys are.
I got a little kid, so he's 4 weeks old. Time he gets grown, his accent will be what they call dingbatish. I would like for him to kind of keep the same accent, the heritage like we've had for years and years, but there's no way now. All this is gone.
What do you think?
The only way it can be preserved is you fellas put it on tape.
Yeah, there's a lot of new people, coming in and everything, and it's changed a lot in the last few years. In the last 20 years, most of it's been lost.
By our count, people within 1 or 2 more generations, the dialect will be gone for good.
Yeah, I had seen bits and pieces of this documentary, but I hadn't seen the entire thing. That was interesting. I hope you guys found it interesting. You need to let me know in the comments, like if that accent sounded at all familiar to you guys, or if there's a particular area there that you think it resembled. Um, Even some of the words, if those are words that you've heard before, as far as like kind of maybe slang. I know some of it, like they said in there, it's more recent. The only thing there at the end that was, and I don't think they were necessarily being derogatory about like the accent. It's a, I think a bittersweet thing is that yeah, things are changing. Nothing's ever gonna stay the same. I mean, even they talked about things changing, adopting new words and stuff in the 70s, and I'm sure beyond that. But if for places that rely so heavily on tourism, you can't necessarily then turn around and say something bad about the tourists because then you're saying like we want your money but we don't want you, right? Um well, unfortunately America as a whole is kind of doing that right now, but that's neither here nor there. But not the reason I wanted to show this video. I just thought it was really interesting. I thought that you guys might find this a little interesting. Um, One thing that I was thinking, like that's a particular island, but then you also have like the French Louisiana um talkers down there, and then like I said, from the Appalachian, the mountains kind of go from I want to say North Carolina up through West Virginia, where I'm originally from. And so in my ancestry, like on my dad's side of the family, like it's traced back to the early settlers of West Virginia, Kentucky, up in those mountains. My grandmother was actually a McCoy, if you guys are aware of the Hatfields and McCoys. um, of West Virginia. There's been all kinds of shows about it and movies. Kevin Costner was in one. I think actually, I could be wrong. I want to say Charlie Hunnam might have been in that, but I could be wrong. I might be thinking about Cold Mountain. But yeah. So on my dad's side, there's still some heavy accents going. But, just like here, those accents have faded. I don't think I particularly have one. I do have a slight southern accent that can come out at times. But then I've also had people ask me if I'm from up in north from like Maine and stuff like that. So you never know. But yeah, I thought that was just a really cool video. You guys have to let me know in the comments about if you guys feel like that any of that sounded familiar to you guys. And hit the like button, hit subscribe if you have not already, and above all, have a fantastic day, guys.